Plus, Ultra presents The Grey Lodge Friday Night Gnostic Mass live from Castle Greyskull, Arknell. I'm your host, Jin the Ninja at Wukong Reborn. My left hand man, Solar Exile, he is not here tonight. Our right hand man, Dr. William Birkin, Joshua the Branch, he is not here tonight. But we have our lodge member, Wales, here. And we, of course, have our fourth pillar, fourth pylon, Eros up. So, Eros, please plug yourself, your channel, and then Waves. If you have anything to plug, please do the same. And yeah, we'll get started. Thank you guys all for coming. Appreciate it. This is our first YouTube live. This is almost marks 2 full years of the Grey Lodge that is continued as like a group, a Metamagic, KSOFI, Dharma, Gnostic, kind of crazy Friday Night Gnostic Mass. That's what we've always called it. Space. And so thank you guys all for being here. And that's why we're doing a crazy kind of we're mixing it up tonight. We're going live on YouTube, which we obviously never do. We usually go live on the app called X. But anyways, I'm sorry. Eros, please go ahead, and then Waves.
Yeah, I like this on YouTube because then you have the live chat, which is always fun. So we can talk to Truth and to Cassandra. Hi guys. But yep, I'm Aerosup. You can find me on YouTube at Aerosup or X at Eros to Ethos. I am interviewing Josh tomorrow, William Burkham, and so that's going to be exciting at 4 p.m. Eastern. That'll be live on my YouTube, and then I have a video that I'm putting out Sunday that I'm really excited about, but I won't spoil it for now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eros. That sounds awesome. We'll all support Josh. We'll all come out. We'll all comment. We'll all say we love him in the chat, all that stuff. So you don't have to worry about that. Obviously, sorry about that. I muted myself. Obviously, we rep for the lodges. So, anyways, Waves, in the spirit of that, Waves, why don't you introduce yourself? Say a little bit about your magical journey, if you want to call it that, or your background, or just you don't have to. It doesn't have to be long. Just like say something for people who've never heard you on the show or don't know who you are, aren't in the chat, and try to give like some context. And if you have anything to plug that.
Nothing to plug as yet. I've got a few stories up on YouTube, but there'll be more coming soon as I've got more circumstances sorted out. As Jin said, I'm a newbie to the lodge and to the streams. My background is basically as eclectic as you can get. Started off as a sort of baby Wiccan just before the craft came out. And then went through all the counterculture stuff, Kerouac and the Buddhists, and then the Beats, and then the Robert Andon Wilson and the Chris Hyatts, and then went more into serious structured work with the Kabbalah and practical magic. And been a Thalemite now for about 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, and recently gone into the Huangpo non-duality. And I'm learning a lot from Jin about how the two systems meld. So I think that's all right for now.
Thank you so much, Waves. Honestly, this is the thing. We've been mutuals for a long time on both accounts, or like as long as you've had the other account.
Yeah.
And we've bickered sometimes. Like I didn't know who you were, so it wasn't like bickering as in like, oh, we're fighting. It was just like more discursive. And you would always make a point, and then I'd always be like, yeah, he is kind of right. Like he is close to relative truth. So you have to like give it to him. So usually what happens is whenever I fight with I actually don't fight with Telemites very often. It's pretty rare, to be honest. That especially if they can hold toe to toe with me. I'm not saying I'm like so powerful or whatever. I just mean discursively. And so you always did. So I always really respected you for that. And I always have to say that I respected your opinion on things and that you were very amenable to like my dharmic, much more rooted in dharma takes. So I just want to say that I appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Same here as well. You definitely piqued my interest in a lot of the dharma over the last year or so, I think.
Awesome. I'm glad. It makes me happy. It, fills me with a sense of like cosmic good. I can be cosmically positive for a few hours a day, or at least a few hours on a Friday. Remediate my Venus. Speaking of Venus, Eros, do you have anything to say about our current astrological cycle or current conjunctions, trines, anything evil, good, anything at all?
Um, let's see. Well, I mean, Uranus just moved into Gemini, which is a pretty big deal. It's not going to go back into Taurus um, again for, let's see, 7 times 12, whatever that is. So that's, somewhat exciting because that's going to clear out a lot of stagnant energy in whatever house Gemini is for you. I find that it's almost like these phases of life where um, kind of like the area in your life in those 7 years, because it takes Uranus to travel 7 years through one sign. Um, you'll see that your life is kind of in these 7-year blocks of like, um, I had these kind of like quick lightning events that almost like propelled my evolution forward related to whatever that house theme is. So, you could look in your chart, whatever house Gemini is, and then, you can kind of see what kind of areas of your life that might propel you forward, or you might have some sudden events, um, shocking events that evolve you. And it's kind of fun too to kind of like reflect back on like, you know, uh, your Taurus house, because it just left Taurus, maybe um, reflect back on some of those uh, experiences you had in that house that felt sudden and yeah, I won't repeat myself, but that's exciting in my opinion. Kind of, worrisome maybe like when Uranus conjuncts the US's Mars or something like that, but that's not going to be for another, you know, 3 or 4 years probably. Um, let's see what else is going on. We have a Taurus new moon soon. That's, kind of an opposite to that Scorpio full moon that we had. Um, let's see, when would that have been? A week ago, 2 weeks ago? That feels kind of significant. That'll be like a really nice fresh start. Um, I don't know, there's not a lot of scary things currently going on that I can think of or especially interesting right now, but
Thank you so much, Eros. I know I kind of put you on the spot for that. My apologies. Why I asked about that, because I personally think that like I think the Aeon happened like a while ago. I don't think it's new. Like I always say, it's sort of speculatively but jokingly, it's 1945, but who knows really? Um, I just think, yeah, I think that all of these things, I try and think of them as very alchemically, like very Yetziratically, like how can we move through like the Kabbalah of these things rather than say they're planetary. I always say the planets are klipas. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting time, and I think that's an interest. Like the outer three are always interesting. It causes a lot of consternation between Western occultists to
yeah.
to have the outer three extant, to sort of map them to the tree, to especially the way I frame it, like the planets are klipas, like that's it can be quite radical. So no, I appreciate that, everything you said, and I think that people should be flexible in their framework of how you're saying the astrology. You're not saying it is necessarily fixed. Of course it can be, but
Yeah,
you
astrology
should
is
move
not
through it.
causality.
Correct. Thank you so much, Eros. I know. That's why. I mean, that's why you're the. That's why we made you the fourth pillar. That's it, right there.
Well, and the outer planets, yeah, some people never incorporate them, but I feel like those are I wouldn't say the only ones that I pay attention to, but because I pay attention to other things, like I pay attention to a lot of the karmic stuff, like the nodes, the outer planets, um, some of the moon cycle stuff, but for the most part, I don't pay attention to the inner planets so much. Um, but yeah, I put a lot of weight on the outer planets. And actually, um, y- upcoming transits, this is a while away, but I'm really excited for it. I believe June 4th or June 9th, we're going to have Venus conjunct Jupiter. So that'll be so nice.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's really when love can come into fruition. So, yeah, I like that too. It's very romantic. Thank you, Eros. Appreciate that. Okay, so theme for tonight. Well, let's do our little spiel. So it's Friday Night Gnostic Mass. We come together in consent. We are not on the app called X, which is both the 10 and the 11, but we're going to pretend we are. And we come in the knowledge that magic is motherfucking real. And so we try and approach things from the middle pillar, from a place of non-duality, as well as non-extremism. So we don't necessarily, we're a little left-hand path, but it's more chaos magic. But it's all speculative. It's speculative Gnosticism, it's speculative Kalachakra, and it's speculative Kabbalah. So people can decide for themselves if it's real or not real. So I think that was a good intro that we can sort of bring on astrology and then talk about the outer three, which have been contentious on this very show, as well as on every other live panel I've been on or ever brought it up. Except I have to say, all the Brits were really cool with it. David Rankin was totally cool with it. He was like, yeah, this is a great idea. He was like, everybody should incorporate the outer three. Like, he knew what the fuck was up. So yeah, maybe Curly wasn't that bad because he kind of, primed them for something interesting, some correct thinking, we'll say. I don't know. I'm just being funny. Okay, so what did we see on the timeline today? We saw a lot of Kazakhstan, we'll call it quasi Hyperborea. How does it feel, Jin, to have had like 3 years of your posting history mined and basically splayed out on the timeline in like a 48-hour period? Well, I did feel kind of weird about it, but then I was like, doesn't it kind of prove some of the things that we talked about so early on true? That we kind of said like, yeah, like the New World Island, syncretism. Syncretism means knowledge. Knowledge is always better together. Synthesis, right? We're being very tiferatic. We're bringing everything in together, as well as reconciling the polarities in ourselves. So the 1 and the 10, rather than like the 9 or the 8 or the ever, it's like I like 10 because obviously I practice Dharma, so we like the 10. So that's basically where I'm at. I feel like we are witnessing kind of like an introduction of theosophical Kazakhstan, theosophical Central Asia, normalization of it, maybe, or maybe people are just like, we're like, Jin was right. I don't know. Who knows, really? I just think it's kind of crazy. Does anyone have any ideas or questions or any topics that they want to bring up? I will open the floor. Oh, I should do room shoutouts too. Sorry about that. Cassandra, Logi, Etsy store, purveyor, services renderer, and just all around cool prophetess of the lodge. Thank you so much for coming, Cassandra. Thank you so much, Vanessa, Truth and Dies, of course, Logi, and Etsy store purveyor. Check out Vanessa's Etsy store, Truth and Dies, and you can check out all her hand tie-dyed, Astro elected tie-dyed gear. Of course, Zachary Shumar, Threshold Saint. I think he's been on 5 times. I think so. Anyways, so Zachary Shumar, he's also a content creator. He's posting from his Show account right now. Thank you so much, Zachary. Everybody can check that out. Creative. Yeah, Creative Equipment. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate you, brother. Nice to see you here. He follows all our stuff. He likes all our stuff. He's quiet on the timeline, but he's kind of terminally online as well. So definitely one of us. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Usually we do a way longer one because we usually have a lot more people in the chat, which is fine. I mean, it shows us not having that much people today, but I will tell you our X spaces, they get the numbers. We get at least 200 every time. So if we can turn 200 into like a hundy over here, that would be great. If we don't, we don't. And we can talk about going back to X, but this is so much easier in terms of like admin work because we can upload it right to the channel. And I think it's actually cooler to put our, although we missed the keynote, although I can upload a JPEG later, which I will do. Anyways, so waves, arrows, any ideas, themes of the on the timeline, destruction, is hantavirus killing us all? What is going on?
To quote Douglas Adams, oh no, not again. I was listening to, talking about the chaos magic of just flowing. I was listening to Professor Sam Vankin earlier on. He was talking about something completely different. He was talking about narcissism, but he went into deja vu. And he found that the literature shows that people who have deja vu the most are people who travel a lot and people who are movie buffs. And aren't we all kind of like movie buffs right now, glued to this Black Mirror every single update? And man, the deja vu is just hitting me every single day from this. I'm not sure. I haven't fleshed out this theory at all. It just came to my mind now, but I'm sure there's some way to map it in some sort of emanation that's going on here. The sort of cosmic yesod just throwing it.
That's exactly what it is. Sublunary. We always say the black cube is the Rahu. So the physical black cube that you hold on in your hand is the Rahu, but he's sublunary Rahu. So he's kind of evil. And the software, which is insubstantiated, right, doesn't exist. It's just ones and zeros. Light on a screen. That's the Ketu, the subtle body. So it's all sublunary from here. So we can either ride the motherfucking dragon, which is what we try and do. Was what I tried to do for this. Like, that was my whole project, was like, let's put some real Gnosticism in the world. Let's put some real Kabbalah in the world. Let's put some real Dharma in the world. Not like sit around and like try and get, like, I'm all for, like, if people get book deals at like the occult publishers and all of that, and that's all great and interesting, and people can have really interesting traditional culture accounts. But my idea was to like try and have it be discursive, very tantric, right? All tantras are written between God and his wife,
right?
So us discussing together is sort of like the creation of metamagic, kind of raising it from the aether wave, raising it from the carnal ground. That's how I always saw it. I know that's kind of high-minded.
Yeah. Right, maybe.
You know, I'm not that egoic, but I probably can have a little. I'm very like, I have a lot of Rahu. I'm like I have a lot of impulsive personality traits for sure. Like I have that Rahuvian kind of like deviance where I'm like, let's go higher. Yes means no. No means yes. Like that, yeah, that's true.
Painted on the side of the magic bus further. One of my mates from back home and in the old Summer of Love days was always just shouting out so prime accelerationist, or recapitulating the accelerationism.
I'm not as bad. I'm not really an accelerationist. I'm like more, if we live in the interstitial aeon, then let's play with the smoke that's here. Like, you have a crow as your PFP. I always talk about this, like the crows exist in the smoky ground, the smoky palace of the mind. Oh, right. You can hear them, but you can't see them necessarily, but they're there. So that's kind of how I position us. We're kind of like the crows. We do repeat true things, but it's up to you to discern. Like that hidden path. Lurius talked about this between Hokmah and Gevra. You could say it's
Right.
like that.
It's a matter of,
Tempering.
I was about to say, it's a matter of divining our own crow spirit in that sense.
Correct.
Hold on to it's about little laws going on and right. They really mean this. That's interesting.
I mean, that's what it is. It's you have to create a winnowing basket for yourself and winnow the knowledge, the husk from the grain. You have to do that work yourself. Eros, go ahead.
I was thinking about the deja vu and um, waves you mentioned, that it occurs more in people who are movie buffs or travel a lot. And it's like perhaps you just see so many aesthetic configurations, almost like patterns, that if you see that pattern again in a certain way, maybe you would have deja vu, even if it's not necessarily the same image or something like that. If things line up enough or are in a certain configuration.
Well, film is absolutely a hermeneutic, right? Like that is to lead us through the gateway of perception. You want to use a Kenny G shout out solar term? Like that's very much like leading us through the gates of perception. Digital film is clearly different. And I'm not talking about like Misfits, ABC4, like 2010 digital film, like Handycam. I'm talking about like the modern digital film that has like AI components and compression and all this other technology that sort of distorts the video. Someone brought up a really good point about VHS and like traditional um like this the recorders they use for cinema is that the film is all cut and cropped by hand or like maybe in a machine, but it's done by sight. So it's like the human perception, like the Hesed element of it all, has to reflect on that very Malkuthian sort of distorted brown crystal that is also filled with light, that is also filled with splendor, that is also filled with sound. Yeah, there's something very Kabbalistic about it all. And we've totally lost it. And I think that the one thing I often think about is like, do we create content and it kind of like supplants more traditional media? Is that good? Because most content, I'm not being a hater and I'm not being like my show's the best show. I don't think that. I think it's a cool show and I think I've done an interesting thing in terms of like a metamagical project. But I don't overemphasize it. I wonder though, for most other content, it doesn't really replace the kind of hermeneutic that you're talking about, Eros, like that you can recognize other events in reality that are replicated upon the mirror, the celluloid, something that is like a almost crystal-like, reflexive and refracting.
Yeah, I've been really thinking a lot. I mean, because media today just isn't very good in multiple ways. Like, it's probably quite negative and bad for your psyche to probably watch. Like, outside of YouTube and stuff, where it's mostly just people sitting in front of a camera with a microphone next to their face, and maybe they play a few clips or they play clips of people on YouTube, like, reacting to a video or something. um we're not getting a lot of like, there's a lot to be desired. um like, aesthetically, I feel like we're really slipping, like, you know a lot of the aesthetic anymore is like this aesthetic where like the girl's buckle fat is missing, and it's like very uh Tim Burton, dark eyes, they like cover over the eyebrows. I mean, honestly, I really think about that a lot, how that aesthetic could even have become what it is now, where like you have young women thinking that that's the uh, ideal and like that's beautiful, which I guess maybe in my opinion, I don't really see the um, the appeal to that. Um, and so maybe eh, I guess I don't know how to I guess articulate this the way that I want, but you know, is aesthetics getting and like this idea of beauty, is that being corrupted? We don't have a lot of good aesthetic content out there. I've been kind of really into trying to capture my perspective. I'm not a photographer or anything, but lately I have been able to capture my perspective and like this aesthetic picture that is like maybe I feel an arrow's pulled towards, or like just feels harmonious and beautiful and is an ecstatic experience kind of um, that goes beyond just symbol or pictures, but to something deeper like feeling. And I'm really into the idea of like full aesthetic experiences. But anyway, I guess what do you guys think? Do you think beauty is being like corrupted?
I don't personally. I think that we have gone through an age of like we're gonna see a total change in culture creation. But I think that people who are aiming at Tiferet, if you want to use like Kabbalah, I think people who are aiming for like the higher consciousness, I think that those people will have generative ideas that it won't really matter. They get a few like decades of bad films. Like, people love to talk about like how great the films were in like the 30s and the 40s, and then yeah, there's a whole classic canon. I'm not discounting that. That's not really my genre, but I recognize that there are some really good films in that. There were tons of trash films from that same period. It's not like people's nostalgia for ages, like we always called it in the lodge when we would do the lives, we would say we was kangs. It's like we was kangin'. Like they just can't stop reminiscing, nostalgia, like being nostalgic, trying to place themselves into this like past narrative as like the wistful hero who has to save all of Western civilization by collecting all the best noir films. Personally, I think that yeah, right now we're definitely in like a trash thing, but we have shows like this, we have like shows like We All Do, and I think yeah, maybe it is. Maybe that's enough. I still wonder though. I still think that people should be meditating, practicing Kabbalah, um, like mantra japa. I think you should be doing all the things. I think this is like a period for spiritual exercise. Like Waves is really good about this because he like hits the gym really hard every day. I'm sure we all do. Like I work out 5 days a week. I'm just saying. But I mean, I only have to walk a few hundred yards, right, away to the carriage house, so it's a little different. But anyways, what I'm saying is that I think that's what it is. We have to really exercise our spiritual tools. And like once we're doing that, we're going to have more creative impulses, more generative impulses that we can actually draw the words. Like as you and I have spoken about this, Eros, about like how I posit that the words of the poet are drawn from Hokmah. Like they come into concretization at Hod, but they're really drawn from Hokmah. Like that's where the graveyard of the words are. Just like the crows. The crows bring little bits of it in the crow song. They bring little bits of it like they do their nests. And so we have to kind of remake of it. So I think that we will do that. It might take 10 years, but we have all this whole canon now. And plus we have things that are not just of Western civilization. That's what's really interesting about right now. We have content that's created right now, but then we have all this old canon of like the quote unquote old world and parts of the new world as well. that have not really been well explored. So you could say that it's like there is a lot more ideas. Okay, so and a lot of the energy that would normally go into like filmmaking or creative endeavors is utilized for what we could say is quote unquote propaganda purposes. I mean, like the disclosure stuff, I mean, that's come on. And like there's a lot. It's like that's a lot of what it's used for. It's used for narrative containment. It's kind of like make a production of every single thing, WWE production. Like that's even what it seems like. Like it does. If you were a '90s kid and I was never into wrestling or anything, but there does seem to be like I used to listen to these boomer podcasters being like, "Oh, it is just like WWE or WWF wrestling," and that's why he has his chief of staff that he has. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I can't really tell. But I have to say now I kind of like I'm like, do they have a point?
You didn't watch wrestling?
No.
I
I
watched
wasn't
it.
really allowed to watch those kinds of things.
I did because it wasn't shown over in Britain, and you had to buy. People bought the VHS, and the teenagers brought them around, and we had this just terrible World of Sport wrestling with these absolutely walking around the ring slowly with grannies stabbing them with hairpins as they used to come into the ring because they truly believed they were bad people. And then all of a sudden there was this American thing with the Ultimate Warrior, these colors, all these people like you. So that did a bit of a number on us over there. It was strange. You went through so many things there that were interesting. We're talking about the aesthetics of, sorry, let's talk about the aesthetic of movie now. And you're right about romanticization of the past. Forget students, a lot of us, and how that was just as the kids say, slop, just in and out slop. What was interesting, though, the people who were aiming for Tippereth, as you said, someone like Wells in his movie Touch of Evil, they did their best work and constraints studio system. And sometimes when you touch through them, get a little bit of hand, but because he hated to do it, he really did and focus that into that movie, and almost every scene of it is him. You've got that here. I mean, people were talking about the Nolan movie, The Odyssey. They were going, this can't be an accident. So they couldn't keep up this idea, just accident. And so you've got people feel doing on purpose. Is he subverting the whole thing? We'll look back 20 years and is he subverted or finished off the aesthetics since 2014 that came up? I remember talking just about the TV media, where Brooklyn Nine, the perfect example of last series, just absolutely ruining everything the way before. And they said, well, we can't do it anymore. As if the last season was a year ago, 3 years ago. Obviously, the directions had come down to do it this way. And we all know the uprising of certain political events over the last decade. And I think that propaganda directive for the WWE sort of idea came down right there. And it started to go a little bit the last couple of years with the whole Sydney Sweeney thing, but who they're now trying to degenerate and still push these androgynous beings. I think that's interesting. And also with the WWE thing, even the WWE fans right now are absolutely done with it, because WrestleMania apparently was just all ads all over the ring. Tickets were $45,000 if you wanted a box seat. The machinery is in full view of even the biggest marks now. Nobody can unsee the machinery. And I'm wondering if Nolan is doing something with that. I wonder if he's making a little artistic statement by how bad he has just made this movie, because I don't think he can be this bad by accident. Anyway, what do you think?
I don't know. I think that you make great points. Waves, your mic cut out a little bit, but I heard like the point about Nolan. I think that was great. I've often talked about this in terms of like my Anna of the Daughter framework. Obviously, I just came off of recording an hour and a half about that, so it's very fresh on my mind. But I always called her like the Princess of Breaking Klippas. So we've kind of exited the tunnels of Set, but what does that even mean? I posited it was the ruins of the old civilization. So we're coming into like a kind of a stone age. And not necessarily like a full-on stone age. It can be a stone hyphen silver age. I think that's kind of interesting. Like I have a friend, my friend Sachki, he makes crystal quantum computers. And he's been on my show. He's an excellent Kabbalist. He's a Hesed, but he is really good at both speculative and like Hebrew Kabbalah. And he's like a math genius and like a obviously like a quantum computing genius. So I think that we are interested in, I think we're actually going back to the 90s. We've talked a little bit about this before on the Lodge, like Aether Punk. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but like this idea of being like, it's like going to be it's not, I always say it's a psychic aeon or a psionic aeon rather than a magic aeon. And I actually mean that. But I do think it's Aether Punk or Aether Wave in a way, in that it will be sort of like technologies are going to be a lot more weirder, wilder, and based more in wisdom science. That's been my traditional appraisal of things. So would not be surprised if Christopher Nolan, who clearly, like if you watch, he did Interception, right? Or Inception. That's Christopher Nolan, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure because I'm so bad at pop culture waves. I'm like an old Yenta. Like I'm not kidding at all. Like I don't know anything. Okay, well, so if you've seen Inception and you're good at Kabbalah, you're good at Kabbalah. He clearly understands the metaphysical journey, even from a Jungian perspective. He's tapping in, okay, tapping into something, tapping into a higher consciousness. I think because that's all possible, right? Or that's theoretically possible, at least in the hyperspace kingdom. We're leaving all possibility and potentiality open. So I think he understands. I think he's kind of riding the lightning himself. I think a lot of them are. I always think of in terms of like directors who do interesting Kabbalistic work. I always think of Darren Aronofsky because he always has these very like not English translated Hebrew Kabbalah texts, like sort of he bases movies around them, or like he'll put ideas from them into the films. And I'm like, how did he even know about that? Like it'll be some like really rare Ramic text from like 14th century, or like some like Ramic student text from like the 17th century, or it'll be like some post Lurianic text. And it's like these weird, and just like you would only if you know, you're gonna catch them. So I think that they understand, like we're talking about, like cinema is a hermeneutic, cinema is metamagic. That's clearly true. What is the new media? Well, podcasting is a kind of new media, but it's not really new. And you have a lot of people now relying on AI. And I think that is going to be a big mistake. I think and I'm gonna be honest. I see a lot of podcasters sort of like morphing into avatars, and like I feel like that kind of defeats the hermetic principle. That is anti-hermetic, and I'm not a hermeticist, but I personally think that you don't want to expel all your magic into Ketu. He collects magic. That's what Ketu is. He collects like sin, he collects magic, he collects potential, he collects the ritual smoke after cremation. Like all that stuff that we're meant to remake. That's what he carries with him. So you don't want to expel all your, if you could say, fluids. You don't want to expel all your fluids into Ketu, in my opinion. But what do I know? I have a small show. Eros, what do you think?
I think it's even worse than that when it comes to AI, because you just hear about like kids in grade school and high school right now, and like struggling to like really come up with ideas, and to like they're losing their creativity. And if you keep outsourcing your analysis and your thinking, and you're kind of going to lose that skill. If you stop like working that muscle to articulate yourself, you're going to lose that skill. And I think it's a lot scarier even, because like we're already also like somewhat of a hive mind. What happens when uh, everybody's outsourcing their thinking to the same machine that's kind of just pulling out information from things that kind of already exist? I don't know. It's worrisome to me, to the point where I don't know if it's like just gonna bite them in the butt, or whether this is actually kind of like detrimental, because on so many levels, like, are we going to have the skills that we need to sustain society? Uh, so many things.
So, Eros, in my opinion, no. I think we're obviously going to lose knowledge capacity. Not us. I think that unfortunately, you'll see like a serious decline in the old knowledge, traditional practice. That's all kind of gone. I think that was gone a long time ago, though, if I'm being really honest with you. And I'm not trying, it's not a pessimistic view. It's more of my axialist kind of moving with history view, or moving with the time wheel view, is that I think we lost it during like globalization. I think that it was no longer totally possible for cultures to remain within their, whether they were all chemically sealed or not. And I made arguments on the show that no, because the Silk Road, the old world island, Central Asia, that's where the axial shift took place, at least in the conceptual second turning. So that's why you have the creation of tantras coming out of Kashmir. I think it's the same. I think we'll see the same. That's why they're in such a race for AI. They want to turn the wheel first, and they think AI is going to do it. I don't know if AI is going to do it. I personally think it's up to the perception of man. I'm much more, we'll say, Hesed maxing. You both know I like that field of the field of stable lightning. That's where I feel most at home. I'm not maybe the most ascetic of people, but I just feel like calm and capable there. So for me, I don't know. I don't want to say. I don't feel like I have any particular insight. What I do think is it will change our relationship to knowledge, meaning like non-dual gnosis, death. But I mean, David Smith, he always says this. I'm not really quoting him like correctly, so I don't think he'll listen to this. But David, I'm sorry, we're so sorry. I'm going to use a gin bar. Zimzum is just a state of mind. It's just a California state of mind. Doesn't really exist. The space between Malkuth and Keter is always there. So I personally believe that. I know that's not satisfactory for people who are like very serious path workers, and they want to like be more Golden Dawn oriented. And I'm not putting that down. I'm giving a more non-dual Kabbalah. And so for me, I think that we'll always be able to access there the knowledge and the wisdom and the understanding of those things, of how to get there. Yeah, it's going to look different. It's going to be different. Our relationship to them is going to be different. We're going to have to renegotiate all of it. But in some ways, that is kind of the marga of Tantra. And I'm not saying Tantra in like the more strictly historical view. I'm saying like maybe a more reincorporated. As I've always said, I'm very fond of like the OTO and the Typhonian OTO, at least for presenting the neo-Gnostic framework that they did. Because there would be no Aeon of the Daughter like my framework, which is obviously building off Frater Achad and Nema, but also Crowley's Aeon of the Sun, Aeon of Horus. So I credit them for putting that into the aether, because I think that is that had potentiality. Like it was actual Kabbalistic, speculative Kabbalistic work, the way it should be done. It's using the tree to build out the story, to build the narrative. And not just using the tree as in like to reform the narrative into like the outcome that you want. Of course, Crowley has his preconceptions, his preferences, his sort of orientation to the tree, not all of which I obviously agree with. And that's okay, because we try and strive to be better Kabbalists like not necessarily than Crowley. Well, I mean, why not? But I think that you strive to be a better Kabbalist so you don't make those same Kabbalistic errors. And you try and resolve paradox, where you find it and where you create it as well. So I tend to think of the Aeon as moving. We're in a progressive turn. So those of us who are metamagicians or are magicians or are learning magic or are trying magic for the first time, are doing our experiments in chaos magic via the Grey Lodge, attending Friday night Gnostic Mass, which is it's magic in consent. It's magic. It's like kind of like, this is what it is. We're recording live on the aether wave. We're grasping the lightning. So we're trying to, and we're talking about magic. So there's that meta kind of layer. It's kind of cool if you think about it. So I think that's where it's going. And I try not to be pessimistic. So where is this about Nolan? I think that people like, who's the guy that did Twin Peaks? David Lynch. Everybody loves David Lynch. I don't think I've ever seen a David Lynch movie. I know I'm like out of the magic club forever. But I think but I think that like people like that, they'll still exist. They'll just take different forms. Like the magician will always exist as an archetype. It's very much of the time. It's very much of the Aeon. I know that there's a lot of bros that will, like a lot of magic bros or a lot of like occult bros or a lot of pagan bros that will go very much like, oh, it's the warrior, dude. It's like Tyr. It's like this. It's like this. And actually, I posit for me, Waves can disagree with me, Eros, you can disagree with me, but I posit very much as the Aeon of the sun, as the Aeon of Seth, meaning that he is a magician. He might also wield a sword, but he also wields magic. So I think that the people, the creators will always exist, and it will just be up to the individual magicians, the individual people on the carnal ground to decide like who they want to follow and who they want to believe. Use your own Gevra. That's what the Aeon's about. I'm sorry, Eros, that didn't really answer your question, or Waves. I apologize, both of you.
That's fine. Eros, do you want to go first?
Oh, I wasn't really going to say anything, but the Aeon stuff, I always just think Age of Aquarius, or like, I see it as a very Promethean time.
Yeah, that's how we should think of it. It's a very Promethean time. But the thing is it kind of has a traditional basis. That's what's interesting about Promethean time. This is why I'm different than Jason Giorgiani. He'll be like, I studied Vajrayana, and I'm always like, lol. And then, or he'll be like, I studied Vedanta, I studied Jainism. And then he'll be like, oh, and I'm like, what text did you read? What Puranas did you read? He'd be like, I didn't read any Puranas. I read like the Vedas. And I was like, okay, well, you can't ever say you studied Hinduism. Like, that doesn't even make sense. But I troll him extensively. Sorry, Jason, come on the show. My apologies. But my point is that I think you have to be able to reconcile the Promethean ideas with more traditional, like where is it found in a more traditional wisdom science? So for me, the Promethean ideals are, I like the love, will, and life. That's where I think that's the Holy Trinity for me. Like you're talking about like Aeonic keywords, like Age of Aquarius, like what does that look like? Obviously, I'm a stars over planet person, so I believe in actual Age of Aquarius rather than an age of whatever planet they claim rules Aquarius today or tomorrow or yesterday. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So I agree with you, Eros. I think it's like a very Promethean age, and I think that we have to like tame our own minds. I think if we tame our own minds, we'll become like the psychic space force. That's my most esoteric opinion.
When I say Promethean time and Age of Aquarius, I really don't mean Giorgiani. I know that he is very like, I don't know, honestly, because I haven't actually looked into him, but like Promethean Satanist or something like that. I
I
mean,
don't
just
know what he
from
even means by that.
I don't know.
I don't know if he even knows what he means, but I'm just being honest.
I mean, I think I
I'm pretty
know.
smart. I mean, I think that he has a meaning for it, but I don't know if it's like
I
I
think
don't know.
I think
don't
that
know.
it's like with kind of like Prometheus and Prometheus on the Zeus eating his liver, and kind of him bringing fire is like kind of what propelled the death of the gods and stuff through science, that
Right,
kind of
right.
stuff. And then that we almost maybe through gaining more free will, we are maybe ascending to
Right,
um,
Satya Yuga. He's like really
yeah,
obsessed with like the golden age and the devas. But the whole thing is like the devas live in a mid-tier realm. That's a dharmic view. This is not like this is if if he's studied Mahayana or even Theravada even like a little bit. I'm
right.
not
So
saying
I mean,
he can't pray to them, but I'm just saying that like if you're studying those things and bringing like up dharmic ideals, you're talking about like a golden age that doesn't really exist because those gods do die. They even die in their own story. That's the whole like I know you're not talking about Jason and I'm not saying you are.
yeah,
I'm just I'm positing a problem with his kind of framing. Like
right.
secondly, why would you also want to be a satanic figure? There's nothing wrong with I've talked about, there's nothing wrong at times with being satanic, meaning that you're adversarial to someone's position. Sometimes that's a very Geberatic power and you should be able to say no. That's okay. To put
Well,
a
I think
boundary on something.
it's Luciferic, right? So like being the light, kind of knowing yourself,
Well,
the light.
that's the other aspect, for sure.
But actually, when it comes to the age of Aquarius and Uranus, I get that more so from Richard Tarnas, who is a archetypal astrologer, and you know he's written a lot of texts on philosophy and stuff like that, but he has Uranus on his ascendant, and he wrote this book about how he felt that Uranus um, shouldn't have been named Uranus, but should have been named Prometheus. And I always thought that was interesting, and kind of like
Yes.
I can see
Yes.
the reasoning behind that.
Yes. That makes sense in a tantric perspective. That's much more how I would understand it. It's like, yeah, it's the heatless flame. That makes sense to me. The she who is victorious upon herself. That makes more sense to me. A Promethean planet. Because I think it's caught up. I think it really does get caught up in a lot of like Western sort of like gender and sexual stereotypes. Unfortunately, I don't necessarily think that's what it's about. I don't know. Just an idea. Sorry, Eros. Please go ahead.
Oh no, I have nothing else to
Oh,
add. Waves,
okay.
if you sorry,
No,
that
that's okay. That's totally okay. That's how this space goes, right? We're just doing a wild gonzo. Plus, Waves is like his first time. I don't want to like, he knows. He came on to scare the hose with me, to scare the Skywives, but
I mean,
we don't
Waves
want to.
is all about the Aeon of Horus,
Well, it's
Right.
perhaps?
co-synchronous. There's no contradiction. When he talks about I'll let him respond to this, but when he talks about Aeon of Horus or Aeon of the Sun, he's talking about one polarity of the same thing, and then I'm talking about the other, in my opinion. And they should meet together in synthesis. Not necessarily the ideas, but you could call them the aeons. Like if you want to say it's Mott, you can say it's Mott. So Horus and Mott together. Sorry, Waves, what do you think of that idea?
I do know a few Thelemites that are very big into the Aeon of Mart. I haven't looked into it deeply enough, but I think they're jumping the gun a little bit, because Mart was supposed to be the next one, and it was supposed to be at least another 1,000 years before that happened. But I can see how the precursor of Mart would be shown by Horus. I'm very interested in you seeing Horus should have been called Set, I think you said, or it should have been Set, because there is a big theory that I've seen a few times that Set was Horus's holy guardian angel. Set was the one who initiated Horus, especially the story about where, to put it nicely,
The
Set,
sodomy.
yeah, and he caught the semen in the between his legs, so he wasn't impregnated. So yeah, that is very much of the holy guardian angel experience, where you are penetrated by the cosmic consciousness in the form of this separate being, separate to you anyway.
That never happened to me. Just for the record, I had a sky wife in my experiences every time. Just saying, bikini, so bikinis only.
My HGAs so far, I've been able to see. I suppose they are ultimately androgynous, but in the level where you meet them at Tippereth, mine has definitely been female.
So, right, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
100%. I think my polarity is fairly male on that. But what else were you saying? So we got the Seth bit, the non-dual Kabbalah. I think where you're saying that Malkuth and Ket are exactly the same, not happening. They're all in the dream of the fool. Yeah, I mean, that came to me about 4 years ago when somebody said, "Can you explain? If you can't explain Thelema without using the Kabbalah, then you don't understand it." And to me, it was immediately the non-duality of the nothing experiencing itself. And a bit strange that I'd found this just before we came on the show, and I'd posted it up. In Magic Without Tears, that Crowley says, "Our aim is that our nothing, ideally perfect as it is in itself, should enjoy itself through realizing itself in the fulfillment of all possibilities. All such phenomena or point events are equally illusion. Nothing is always nothing, but the projection of nothing on the screen of the phenomenal does not only explain, but constitutes the universe." And of course, if there's all nothing, just nothing in its fullest manifestation, then yes, the tree itself, of course, doesn't exist in that sense.
I do challenge you to. I don't know if you believe in nothing as in no thing. I'm not sure how Thelema defines it. I would say that it's empty. For me, this is much more my dharmic language. I know you're not probably used to it, so I'm not like faulting you in any way. I'm simply saying that for me, I look at it as like a case of emptiness.
Empty fullness, because you can't say anything about it. So
yes, something ineffable about the emptiness. Maybe you say it's luminous and massless at its most quality full.
Or as Huang Po said, after going through 6 months or a year of saying void, 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 said, but in some miraculous way, this void, in very, very big air quotes, exists.
It's real.
Yeah.
I think there's something very,
yeah, there's, and of course we can't, the language fails well before that, but
that's right.
It gets the idea across.
No, I totally agree. I wasn't trying to correct you at all. I was like, it's so complicated. Like we've talked about this for hours on this show, like many episodes. Like, how do you describe emptiness? How do you describe space? How do you describe akasha, which can also be described as the mind? How do you understand?
Yes.
Right. So, like what is that? And I find that sort of like the David Hyam Smith like approach of like Aleph, like Keter to Malkuth. I think that makes sense. I think, then it creates a paradox or it creates death.
Absolutely. If you approach it through knowledge or the intellect, it will create death. I mean, I don't think there's any further you can go with the intellect than death.
I totally agree.
You have to let it go at that point, or you turn into, what was the term, the Black Brother, and that takes us straight back to the black magicians of advertising and running the business into the ground.
No, you're absolutely right.
And then you have the Prometheans destroying this. I mean, well, was my favorite because he not only did it, but he showed his tricks. And with this, if you this Derek around the UK, he's not as he once was. He's a mentalist sort of idea, but he really likes showing up in a good way. There's certain type of people, the group up, and one of the ones I always remember was he made these advertising execs who thought they were on a meeting to pitch him their ideas. He, through lots of subliminals on their journey, put the ideas in their head, what they were going to show him. And at the start, when he just showed, oh, is your ideas like this? And he showed pretty much what they'd drawn. They were a little bit shocked. And then when he showed them how all of the hidden cameras showing that kids run past all with holding letters, like the video in that with walks through this crowd of people, be it concentrating on something else, and you don't see this gorilla right there. He was doing that with bands, children, and billboards and everything. They see a thing. They just with the ideas thinking it was this. But the interesting part was the absolute hatred that they looked at him, especially one guy looked at he had a front hair. That was dude. I've seen in movie shows and true documentaries this detestation, this magician had Derek on losing and doing it on him. It's like it's my job to do that. You can't do it on me. That was amazing. And the other thing I think we covered just for finish is where do these ideas, how we can channel these ideas. And I had to get the old Moonchild, the Crowley book off. And he was talking about genius. This dancer was, she's like the greatest artist we've ever seen. Yeah, but she's vulgar, stupid, heartless, mercenary, a sponger, the worst type of courtesan, and she's an incredible player. He comes on stage from an interpretation of the subtlest, most spiritual music of Chopin or Tchaikovsky. For this, just to know. Can you explain this reasonably if talking of two character? It's nonsense. So the only matter is that no thing any stupid, dishonest, and immoral secretary. The dictation is taken down correctly and given to the world. The last person to be enlightened by it is the secretary. So this may think this you talking maybe thinking that you go to the gym, you push back against the earth, you magical training, you do magic basics, you let the secretary, which is your mind, hear divine call the cross, be able to winnow. And I think with a lot of thinkers, they definitely look to training, which is the different parts of the body, mind, soul. We talk about doing the shadow work. Hardly he talks about, as Crowley, you should achieve very high regard one's thought. You should be a warrior. You should do all these things. And people are coming, I think that's a good idea. One talk. And things have been hammered in the occult training for so long, and people think that they can just skip them and still be a good magician. And you'll find that when they get to somewhere like Tippereth or Darth, they will fail and they will crumble because they've attracted far too powerful forces for their system, their jet system, whatever, to be able to cope with the dictation, the lightning from Absolute.
I totally agree, Waves. I think that you need a foundation. You cut out a lot there. I'm not gonna lie, but I heard like you were it was so interesting, the parts that were in
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. Sometimes your mic sounds great and sometimes it doesn't, and I know what it's like if someone's like interrupts me mid flow. It's not that I don't love it, but like sometimes it's funner to go to go full flow, even you get me. So I agree though that foundational practices. So I try and always say, like, what is the primordial practices? Like, if you want to say Aeon of the Sun is like the new era Aeon, and then the Aeon of the Daughter is like the Silver Age or the Stone Age. I think both. That's kind of interesting. Just like how you were talking about, like, I don't necessarily posit it in the Egyptian way. So arrows, when you're hearing me say like the Aeon of Seth, I'm talking about Seth as in the Gnostic figure. Could there be an argument that perhaps those are interrelated like archetypes? Yeah, maybe. We've talked a little bit about this, that Dr. Aquino really tried to like find a etymological or textual connection, and a lot of the Gnostic scholars, the most Gnostic scholars, said no. I don't think any said yes. But I do agree that, like, if you're looking at the older Sethian stories, like about the coyote, not so much about the serpent, I think, yeah, you probably are looking at like an alternative Aeon of the Sun figure. So, and I also think this makes sense in the Puranas. Shiva has two sons. I mean, he has more than two sons. He also has a daughter. So, but she's hidden. So that also is interesting. Obviously, that helped me in like my formation of the tree. But no, I think people need a foundational grasp of magic. I don't necessarily think that the institutions are like the way to go, but I'm not dissuading anyone from joining anything. I just think that everything is so much is available to you for free. I mean, we all, like, Eros has a channel full of incredible content. Waves himself like knows like so much. Like, I was shocked when he was talking about tantra. We were talking about tantra the other day and like deity generation. And usually as anyone who knows me knows, I'm super conservative about even talking about it in the group or with even privately. And I was just like, oh, okay, I guess it's like okay that we talk about it because it's obviously written in like 100 million books that I've never read. So, it is what it is. So am I going to tell people like all my tricks into the trade? No, but I think that it's important that people are practicing them. I think that deity generation, just for the record, is very dangerous and can be very dangerous and can increase what we would call aggregates, meaning that they are like hardening of the internal energy centers, the chakras, of which we understand there to be 5. So I think that that can be very dangerous. But I think if you're doing it with sincerity, bodhicitta, and even if you're not doing it in the most traditional Tibetan, Chinese, or like Thai forest tradition way, it does not matter. If you're sincere and you take refuge in the Buddhas and you're like, okay, I think you're ready to rock and roll. Like, for me, you're good. And like, I have become accustomed a little bit more now to use like the Telemite sort of like names. Like, to me, Nui and Tara are very similar. They remind me of each other. They have like a star. They're both like, Tara's name means star. Tantra means to stretch beyond the stars, referring to Tara. She is like the ocean of mercy. She's pregnant with potential. I think we even talked about this in the chat, Waves and I. So to me, that there is like a relationship. But it's not like I think that they're necessarily distinct. I just think that the names are different because they're referring to different stages of consciousness. This is something if you practice Dharmic religions, is that every deity has a list of 1,008 names. Those names are also graduated and graded according to their potentiality. That doesn't necessarily make them lesser or lower. It just means that they're going to appear to you in a lower stage of consciousness. Well, don't you want to ride the lightning? I think that a magician maybe should be more interested in riding that lightning rather than seeing where a particular boon might take him. But that's, me. I'm not saying like a Golden Dawn, like style theurgy. I'm not saying that at all. I would consider myself post-theistic, as everyone who's listened to the show or my show would know. I just think that I think the lightning can be made to be a place of stability in the tree. And I think that's why I like the sort of replacement of Uranus with Prometheus, obviously, excuse me, because I think that it is actually possible. And I think that I don't know if there are people who can necessarily do it, but I think there are people who have access to it. Obviously, men are better at path working than women because women are much more separatic. They're so empty that, they can float away as zucchinis into space, which is good in a way, but it's also not good in a way. So you don't want to float too much into experiential wisdom where you're almost in unverified personal gnosis, which is a problem a lot of obviously magicians have. But neither do you want to be strict but not daddy, only stuck in the text of like yonder year. You don't want to, you want to kind of come to a place of synthesis in the middle. That's where I think is the best. And then I also think you can rise together. I know this is kind of a radical idea, but I think you can rise together from death if you go with the intention of creation of death. I think if you go with the intention of something else, access, I think that the amount of klipas and obstacles and aggregations and perhaps even karmas are going to be a lot greater. But I also think you can do everything from there. It's just a matter of perspective, will, and how you do it, and ritual methodology. I don't know. Does anyone have any comments on it? Okay, Waves, go for it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you were saying there. No, one doesn't have to go through a hidebound system or even a non-hidebound system, but one should really check out the system that one is about to use. I mean, I've stayed away from Kundalini exercises all my life. I've not touched them because I know that unless you are under supervision of some sort, there are very big dangers with that. It used to be a cliche in California of the Kundalini crack-ups, schizophrenic ideation and other neurosis used to just flood out of these people. As you were talking about the Tantra meditation, yes, generating bodhicitta. I can't pronounce that because it's one of the things I've just read rather than spoken. And I double checked the path of this with other things before I got involved. Once I know something looks very safe and it looks like it's within my wheelhouse to do, I will give it a go. But I will also stay that away from things that experimental or new or look very, very unbalanced to me. Touch intellectual is then touch unbiased gnosis, a dead end. That's why one of the basic things that they tell you to do is to write your diary after every even basic meditation, because it brings you back down. You are Saturning yourself into the writing of concretely putting down what you were floating away with. And so you've got those two nice little balances going just from that. And then you've got the physical exercises and all these very, very important things. Unfortunately, I mean, it's the one, I won't mention it, or I'm on. And it is just the most unbalanced thing I've ever seen. You've got some serious magicians in there, and you've got, can you drive someone, can you not listen to me? Can you, my girlfriend back, please? And they're most of the posts. There's no, we're giving too much information maybe to people that are really not ready for it, probably never would be ready for it. Even with all luck and willpower in the world, you can't get somebody with a 80 IQ to samadhi. I don't think the ability is there. The wiring isn't there to have it done. And I don't think we should dangle a carrot over some people that are not ready for it. And I think that's one of the worst things about the world is we've, instead of keeping people simple and happy and phones, we are dangling before saying, catch these. And you're stirring up emulation, you're stirring up ambition. And I think that is a bit of a tragedy with the magical system and the amount of information that's out there. I think it's doing a lot of harm. It's doing a lot of harm even to people who are going through it properly. When people are just doing it in their home without ruthless self-honesty and the ability to be self-honest, I think, that can be disastrous. It can be disastrous even if you're going through the cycles properly and you hit a new Sephiroth, a new path. Bang, you've opened this whole new load of energy into you. And it takes a while to recover. It takes a while to recover from these things. You should know your limits, just like any physical exercise. But people jumping in straight into Enochian, Kundalini, or Goetic magic, you're just looking at this slow motion car crash and going, I wish I could help, but they're not going to listen. Anyway, that's pretty much my rant about that over.
No, I like that. I think that was a good rant. Please rant about that again. I totally agree. I think people have I think that it's because of the information overload. I think you have so many videos just on YouTube alone talking about like how to do this non-dual experience, how to achieve gnosis here, like you listen to this sound, or like the gateway tapes, or like you have people like doing like crazy breathing exercises with the gateway tapes, or listening to like other things. I mean, you have every tool available, physical, metaphysical, audio, like visual, everything. I think it's very dangerous, but I think that there is a way to. I do think that traditional Kabbalah is, or at least you could study DCS Kabbalah, like non-dual Kabbalah. I think that would be a really good way. I think there are like some good. I think we've done some good work as a group and also like individually. And I think that if you listen to like the Our Wise Waves advice, I was going from Our Wise Raven. I don't know why. I guess because he has a Raven PFP or a Crow, is that yeah, you should be like sadhana is really dangerous. I don't know where this like idea that it isn't, or that it's so simple, or it's just like doing like a peaceful deity and it's like, no problem at all. Like, no, you read any historical account of people who were like great accomplishers, they like would go through like these kinds of like periods of madness. There's almost no other way to describe it. They would like accomplish the deity, but they would they would feel like very resentful against like humans for like or something, maybe themselves, who knows, or whatever the self is. They would go through like periods of very angry, very like, or remorseful, or sadness, or like love, like yearning for that, like different. You are going through the different alchemical stages. Like you have to be very aware, like Waves is saying.
Divine
So
madness.
obviously we live in a very as I've called it, we live in the aeon of decoherence. So maybe there is no madness. Maybe all madness is the quote unquote divine madness, knowing I'm a non-theist. Maybe it is just like a psychic overload, and like we just do our best to like make sense of the world as it is with these like psychic input overloads. I've chosen not to watch new media. I listen to music though. So I've chosen obviously one kind of hermeneutic that I can at times control and to a degree tame.
Well, I was
But
thinking, oh, sorry.
oh no, sorry, go Eros, please go ahead.
Well, Waves makes an interesting point because sometimes I think about it in these terms of like, Martin Luther and how he translated the Bible so that there was no longer that kind of wall between people and accessing the holy text, right? Because before they had to just kind of go to church and then go through the priest, and the priest was like, um, that threshold. Um, I don't know what you would call it, the watcher of
Yeah,
the
the
threshold.
interlocutor.
Oh, thank you. And if sometimes I think Crowley was kind of a similar figure where through him you have all of these rituals that were previously secret, right? Like in behind the Freemasons and these other secret societies that were truly secret. And he just kind of took them and he's like, yeah, so here's all these libraries and here you go. They're very public. You can just buy them. And he made all of those things that were previously secret and private, and you had to be kind of like initiated into to just the public masses. And now you can find them online. You can just look up literally all of the libraries online for free.
Hmm. Well, I agree with you. I don't want to insult Waves, but I agree with you. I'm not saying he was like, I think a lot of magicians are kind of hucksters too. I think that's kind of part of the game. I don't look at myself as like that. I prefer to be like a virtuous outlaw, as I've often talked about when we talked about morality and things. I know not everybody loves that framework, but I think it's very Chinese. I think it's very Taoist. I think it can be very Buddhist, like keep my honor and my Samaya vows. It doesn't necessarily have to be conventional, but it makes sense to me. It's coherent to my worldview. So I think Crowley had a lot of personal flaws. I think that's part of what the practices are actually for. I think it's for overcoming, like Wave was talking about, like radical self honesty. That can be very difficult, very painful. And it can take a long time actually to overcome the different, it depends on how many klipas you've built up over the Sephira before you start to perceive what's really there. So, um, you have to work on your flaws. You can't just perpetuate them. That's another part of like path working through the tree, or like any hermeneutic, like we're talking about tantra. Like you can hit like, okay, so like people know me for doing curricula or posting curricula as the Aeon of the Daughter, which I agree with. But you can't just keep hitting curricula if you're having the same problem over and over. You have to come at it from a different angle. So you have to start hitting it from maybe with a male deity, or you have to start hitting it with like a deity of a different color. Because if you're not like collapsing that quote unquote star or sound or word, as you were bringing up, like the Bible releasing the common word to people. We've talked about this before as a space, before you, Eros, but I'm glad that you bring it up now, is that English is a very magical language. It's just not quite in the right order. But that's what sort of potentiality of English is, that we have a lot of flexibility in semantics and in syntax as well. And if you understand like tantric grammatical rules, which uses Sanskrit, Sanskrit's also a very flexible and fluid language, and it's very amenable to compounding, which English is also. So from sort of like the chaos, as I was saying, like bringing from Hokmah, that flux that we think is impotent, actually there can be something really interesting and that arises. But we have to be very creative in the ways that we sort of achieve the synthesis, if we want to be generative and productive, because not everything is going to be applicable. And that's also like about online, and like you'll see people try and like mix and match systems like a puzzle. And in my older not podcast career, excuse me, but my older posting career, I definitely was like very like against this, because I could see that this was not like, at least the way I understand it is like, if you're going to do syncretism, I'm not a theosophist, but Rime has a theosophical tendency, is that I think that you have to appraise things well, do they work or do they not work? You have to see if they are referenced in wisdom science. Do they have success? Are they living people who can still do the texts? All of that. And I think that it's okay to discard things. And I think people are very fearful, especially in like an aeon of the Aeon of the Daughter. If we're saying we're post tunnels of Set, we are in the carnal ground. So everything before us, we're not sure, is the ruins. I think people are very afraid to discard what once had been. And it's also okay to say, like, not every wisdom text is going to work properly in every aeon. I'm not really afraid to do that. But I also think that a lot of people won't do that necessarily, and they probably should. And I'm not just talking about texts, but also traditions. I think it's okay to discard certain things. I think that's very aeonic as well. Like, we are turning with the wheel, and the wheel is always turning. I don't think we have to replicate the same things from the Aeon of Osiris or the Aeon of Isis. I think we can replicate something from the Aeon of Horus and the Aeon of, I'm going to call it Mod. I'm sorry, Waves, but I do agree with that. I do like that it's happening. That's what Frater Achad said, was that it's happening at the same time. So there's no contradiction or paradox, right? So I'll just use that, but I'm perfectly happy, you know, to also acknowledge that it is the Aeon of the Sun, and I agree it is. And I think they tried to package it in the Jesus mythology, and maybe that's okay for the Normgroids. That's kind of the point I've come to. I've like, if that helps the Normgroids, if them going to church, I'm not saying Anglican church because I think that's a lost cause. Sorry, waves, but I think that
No,
if the
that's fine. I was raised Catholic anyway.
see
Of course I was.
of course you were. I see. This is the thing. A lot of magicians, including myself, and obviously waves, do come from Catholicism. Just as a lot come from Judaism, and a lot are in Roman Orthodoxy, or not Roman excuse me, Eastern Orthodoxy right now. There are definitely containers for people who, and not just containers, but there are narratives and like sort of hermeneutics for different people. And I think that it's really important to just acknowledge that like everybody's going to have to go through it. Like Waves was talking about, like you can't induce people with like a 70 IQ into like a non-dual gnosis or noetic experience. I totally agree. You are going to get someone who brings the carnal ground back with them. They're going to see the images that you see, which can be very crazy and like very disturbing if you're not mentally prepared, and they're going to think it's real. And I'm not saying it's not real, but it's not of this world. So it's not necessarily anything we need to replicate. And I think this is also like where a lot of the, you know, I'm not a big Dave McGowan fan or any of that parapolitics, like serial killer as occultism stuff. But I think it has merit in that, yeah, you're going to get people who are densified, who go through the experience, who are ill prepared to do so. And that can be anyone. That isn't just low IQ people. But obviously, low IQ people are less, unless they have a really strong faith. Like, unless they're like a super bhakti, or they're like just like a total pious, like village grandma. I think that they're going to have a hard time crossing the proverbial abyss. But that's just my opinion. Eros, why don't you say something?
I think, you know, if we're discussing kind of like that, that risk in magic that is very real, where, you know, it can lead to some schizophrenic tendencies, you know, that does make me think of Thelema as well, because, um, you know, some of the Thelemic rituals are kind of inverted, and I think that the way that, at least like inverted to natural law, right? And I think that Crowley had spoken about that, and how that is kind of purposeful to like break down your existing patterns and like um kind of like fragmenting your psyche in a sense. And you know, sometimes that can make you hallucinate and see things, and so there is that risk. And he believed that you did have to go a little mad in order to cross the abyss, as at least what he said. And you know, if people weren't strong enough to handle it, he was just kind of like, well, you know, uh, it is what it is. And you know, maybe he found a little humor in it. Even, I'm not trying to misrepresent him, but um you know, I think that is something interesting too, especially since these are rituals that people do every day. And I always wonder, like, you know, well, obviously I approach things very differently, right? I'm very hermetic, and so to me, I'm like, you know, I want to strengthen that alignment. So if I were to do like Liber Resh or something, um, you know, I think I would kind of redo it in a different way so that it's not inverted, you know, that you're not calling Kepri in the um, you know, middle of the night when it's really dark. And I can't even think of the other positions right now, but you know, some of them just, it's like, why would you call that deity at this time? Like, that doesn't really align to their symbology or their myth. um, and in some aspects it's even inverted, right? Like Kepri in the middle of the night. And so to me, it's like I would rather align with those energies and like call the right deities at the right time of the day to like actually attune to them rather than to like fragment my psyche and do that kind of process. Um,
I think you're right, Eros. I know you'll be surprised maybe to hear me say that. Maybe not. I think that you're right, though. I think that's also a lot of what Crowley did. I think he was a master of the trap, of the Kabbalah trap. I think he loved to invert things and talk about the inversion of them. I don't necessarily think that that is literal. I think that's often conceptual. Something I learned from Lurianic Kabbalah. Sometimes that narrative positionality is as powerful as the ritual itself. This is a very tantric idea as well. So just to learn that, as for Liber-Resh, well, you don't have to accomplish, you don't have to do that invocation, but you understand it, how it works, and maybe you work it through the paths of the tree. And then you say, oh, that's wrong. I think personally, I think that that's what the intention is. I think it's to make someone like you look at it and say it's inverted. I'm actually going to rectify it. That's what I tried to do with the Mahavijja tree too. So I completely understand that you'd want to sort of reset the rituals. And I think that this is a lot of what magic is. I think it's a lot of people's sort of, they capture a glimpse of gnosis, but it's not quite gnosis. And some people have never even been there. Like I've talked to someone who said he was like a great magician, like just like unbelievable, charges like hundreds of dollars. I'm not talking about anyone affiliated with us or formerly or whatever, but just someone else on my show on Threshold Saints. Okay. You can guess who he is. And he talked about curing someone of pancreatic cancer. Now, I actually do believe that magic has infinite potential. I'm not saying it can cure pancreatic cancer, and I would never make that claim publicly or anything, or privately in like a DM or something. I do believe that magic has infinite potential, but it depends on the level of the operator, the magician, the mage. But he also said that I asked him like straight up, because you know that I'm a Kabbalah nerd. So I was like, straight up, have you ever had experience of non-dual gnosis? Like that's the whole point of magic, in my opinion. And he said, no. So I said, well, then everything you're doing is just kind of in the lower worlds. And he was like, he had to think about it, because it was actually like, oh, maybe I was right, in the sense that like what he was doing with like, even if I didn't believe his like fantastic, I'm not saying it's fantastical in entirety. I'm not saying that people cannot heal the sick with like ritual technologies. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that I didn't necessarily believe his story about using a goetic to do it. I'm not saying that they're not powerful and they can't alter reality. I think Waves shared a story that proves that to the contrary. But I also think we have to not cling to unverified personal gnosis. Like we should not cling to experiential wisdom or our last experience. And if you are not ever having non-dual gnosis, but you yet claim the title of grand magician, great sorcerer saint, I think that's a problem, personally. So I am saying that, Eros, you should do that ritual in the rectified manner and then come back to us with notes of how it went. I know I'd be really interested in hearing that. Waves, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, that ritual itself, that one, I've adjusted to the, as Crowley called it, it's not pseudo-Egyptian, it's Egyptoid. He changed a lot of it. I don't see anything wrong with the new beginning coming at midnight, which is the way I see it, because you always say "Hail to thee" if you're greeting the new morning at midnight. You say "Hail to thee from the abodes of the evening," even though you're going into midnight, and then at morning you say "Hail to thee from the abodes of the night," even though you're greeting the rising sun. So you're always slightly out of tune, coming in, out, coming. It's a becoming thing. And it took a while for that one to sink into me. But I think if you do some of the rituals as written, you can get quite a bit of gnosis from it eventually doing it. But there is nothing wrong with changing it and doing it your way. For example, Crowley wanted, one thing I don't agree with is setting your table to face Boleskine. There is one ritual where it's useful, maybe two, but it's not something I would do with the East. You making Boleskine the East, that is a bit strange. There's a couple of inverted rituals like Liber Van Regulae, where you are turned upside down in the solar system and you're drawing what appears to be in averse pentagrams, but they're actually the right way up. You're supposed to be upside down. So there are a few things like that which are very trappy. But as far as the fragmenting of consciousness goes in a more serious way, yeah, eventually to reach non-dual gnosis and past death, the idea that you should have not one particle of dust left in you. And I think Nui used that, but I also think it was something in Huang Po, which was something that Crowley had never read about this particle of dust. Meaning, as far as I'm concerned, if you have this bit of sand in the oyster, then and then you have this gnosis and you come back, then it becomes inflamed, then it becomes this black pearl, and you can either give birth to the new self or you come back absolutely shattered. And I think Crowley did have a shrug his shoulders if somebody failed at that level, but he also set up the AA in a stages so you could get to that level and possibly not lose your mind. So I think he was very serious about that. But remember, Eros, that he also assumed that anybody that was on this path had so many thousands of incarnations already that at this point they're going for it. If they miss it, as he thought he did, he was incarnated for 2,000 years as a nobody until he tried again. And he just another day at the office sort of idea. Not everybody in every incarnation is meant to cross the abyss or achieve non-dual gnosis, you know. And I think that's why a lot of people think, well, that's very elitist. And I'm sorry, reality is kind of elitist. Not everybody
intellectually elitist, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and physically, you know, I'm not going to be
Absolutely.
running I'm not going to be running 100 meters anytime soon. But if you follow a good thing about the AA system, as was, he's which prepare you for the AA work, which I think is very useful because he's got a lot less dropouts of the people that are doing the AA work after this preliminary university level. The AA is scrap level. So he's got a new from years back, and he says every time somebody gets a new initiation grade, emanation, reveals one more part of themselves, he said they'll go a little bit mad in a socially more or less acceptable way. Then they'll come back on the path and go, you know. Yeah. And he says that after every single one. And yeah, people do lose their minds on certain things, but generally, if they've been trained well, they can come back. I remember talking about things that can really go wrong. Robert Arnold's mind shattered when just the born rich in the Bisamech while on LSD, and then immediately he attuned to this, either the planet Sirius or ancient Irish bard or the puka, or all three of them at once, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, multiple answers at the same time, very quantum. And this was from one invocation on LSD. And yeah, you're not supposed to jump into Liber or Alan, and for meditation say, hey, you've got to do it for 6 months before you can see anything. Whereas Liber Samech is a little bit quicker and a little less You don't need all the stuff. So yeah, there's dangerous stuff up there. But Crowley also said you don't need that book in your possession if you're not intending to do it. If you got it, that's your own fault. So he did decide himself, he was concerned. But if, because of his mountaineering experience, if somebody doesn't follow the rules, the mountain's going to give way and you die. He shrugs his shoulders and he goes back to bed and doesn't look for the corpses because he said, well, I told them. And from his point of view, that fatalistic, deterministic, that was what your incarnation needed at the time. He really probably couldn't care less. I think he mentioned about the Taoist approach to seeing a tiger, which was no particular attention. He isn't defending against the tiger. If he's not a threat and he's not hungry, he's probably going to leave you alone. You running, going to be a completely different story. So there's that element as well. But I do think Eros has made some good points about how certain rituals look wrong and how your mind can go. But who said you have to go your mind to come to your senses? What 70s therapist said that? I'm not sure.
Well, who said your senses are your mind?
Yeah. So I think there's something wrong going a little bit crazy. It's whether you can come back. And my early experience, many people came back. But no, it's the same as going surfing. When you can't swim or you're not physically fit enough, you can't blame the ocean. So.
Correct. Great question in the chat, Eros. Who says you are your mind? Exactly. That's very dharmic of you, Eros. We are not our mind. We are not our mind. We are not our body. We're a secret third thing. We're massless and luminous, love in the emptiness of space. Star seeds. But I actually think that Waves made a great sort of counterposition to some of the things you said, Eros. And like, maybe it's just a matter of perspective. Maybe it's a matter of view. Maybe not all the rituals are, maybe the rituals aren't actually inverted. Maybe they're actually, it's for, because in Buddhism, we would say in Tantra that the energy channels actually are in a figure 8. So that they actually, it technically does travel up and down. Now, we wouldn't necessarily use like a quote unquote antinomian system to make the channel flow in its proper direction. But you could, if you were really stuck, like if you were like a person with a lot of anger, you could use a very wrathful practice to do that. So.
Yeah, I think that it is a matter of perspective, honestly. Sometimes I think it's, two different journeys in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, that is, the truth is it is. It's like, how you were talking about the nodes of the moon? Well, that's how you have to imagine it. It is Rahu and Ketu entwined together, the black serpent and the white serpent entwined together. One is climbing up the tree on the red pillar. One is climbing down the tree on the blue pillar. But they're also entwined. So, Waves was bringing up Libra Samekh. Well, Samekh on the tree is in a secret positionality. The secret is that it's actually 0 or emptiness. What is emptiness in a Buddhist sense? Well, emptiness is bodhicitta, love, you could say, wisdom and method, or wisdom and understanding. It's the same, but it's the more Kabbalistic framing. So just like I always say, if you watch Sailor Moon, you'll get it. It's Chibi-Usa and Sailor Pluto, Dath, and Kether. Not necessarily, Chibi-Usa is not necessarily Kether. She's just the childlike nature of when those things are unified, of when Keter is at Malkuth, which it always is. And Dath is that kind of space that it doesn't really exist, but it exists when we bring it into perception. It's like the key. It's the key to the doorway. The tunnels are set. So it's very Kenny G. Oh yeah, Waves, you don't know this, but my thing is I always try and say every episode, watch Sailor Moon, because Sailor Moon teaches you really good Gnosticism and really good Kabbalah. It teaches you the aeon of the daughter. And so through Sailor Moon, perhaps you too can escape samsara and the hyperspace kingdom.
Is Sailor
sorry.
Jupiter? Oh, I was gonna say, is Sailor Jupiter the daughter?
Sailor Jupiter is not the daughter. Sailor Jupiter is a daughter, of course, because they're all daughters, right? Because they're Sephiras, not planets. I know they have planetary names, but because they're all women, they have empty, kind of a luminous nature, an empty nature by themselves. So Jupiter is a tomboy. And you can say, and this is even discussed in the series, that Uranus, a planet I know that you're kind of familiar with, or at least like interested in, Uranus is half Sailor Mars and half Sailor Jupiter. That's exactly how it's described. And I agree with that. And if you look at her power, it's lightning. Well, Sailor Jupiter's power is also lightning. Sailor Uranus's power also invokes an earthquake, and it also invokes a flame. So that is very tantric in a way, because it's like the three elements, fire, earth, and water, combined to create air. Air is ignited, and that creates the lightning flash. So it teaches you Kabbalah in the sense that like all the Sephira have to be balanced. I think this is like a really good idea. Is that all the Sephira should be you should try and be balanced in Tiferet and Yesod, and you should have those, the sun and the moon, and you should try and have those in a kind of dialogical relationship where you're never too stuck in the sublunary world and you're never too stuck in the egoic Tiferatic world. You're traveling freely between them both. And you're reconciling who you are. And like, yes, I agree that Crowley did talk about like this dark shadow self with like the, the dark pearl and all of that. And like, look, I don't take the view that you need to travel the Klippa to understand the Klippa. You're going to understand the Klippa because you're not you, Eros or Waves, but people who travel the Klippa specifically, they're already full of misperceptions of themselves, of the world, of magic, of gnosis. I think you can travel the tree straight upwardly and you're still going to encounter Klippas. They're just going to look different. So they're going to require different ways to break them. So I think that also goes along with your point, Eros, about like looking at something as inverted. Like different people will need different techniques to break the Klippa that they find themselves in this incarnation. That's just one idea. Anyway, sorry, Waves. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please go ahead.
Just back. Had to do Liberec. I really, right. That was talking about Sailor Moon. The two most, I don't know if you've discussed it on any of your shows, but the two most blatantly casted movies I've seen, the movie Sunshine and the Grey. Have you seen either of those?
Say them one more time. Sorry, you cut out a little bit there.
Sunshine and the Grey. Sunshine is the movie where they bomb it because it's about to destroy the earth. And The Grey is the film with Liam Neeson and the wolves.
I think I have seen the Liam Neeson film.
I saw that in theaters. That's a good movie.
It is
okay. Go for it, Wave. Explain some Kabbalah. Explain some Kabbalah of Liam Neeson.
I'll research it for next time. I wanted to do a video on it one day, but basically, all the characters that die in order is going from the planet. It's just wonderful. They reach the dark part at the end, and I'll go into more detail. I think next time I'll research it. That's my homework for the week.
Awesome. Why don't we do that? We'll do a movie week after 2 weeks from now. We'll do a movie night. We love those. We haven't done those in probably 6 months. I guess we did them at Halloween. It was mostly Jin because nobody else watched the films that I chose. But I thought we did some interesting. I'm good at Kabbalah waves, so I don't think I disappointed in any way. I'm just saying, it was like kind of you had to follow me and my Kabbalah, but it wasn't intentional. But I think like next time, like let's do that. I think that would be really interesting. I'd love to hear more from you. We'll close out in 10 minutes. I think this was a really fun way to run the lodge space, at least for tonight. I know it will make my admin job that much easier to upload it to our Grey Lodge playlist. And also, I want to announce like our channel is undergoing renovation. It's not quite relaunched yet, but I think it will be really cool. And I think that if Solar wants to upload his, I called it Doctor or not Doctor, Professor Solar Exile. I thought that was funny. Very Professor X, right? Office hours. I think if he wants to upload them and like it's me talking about the aunt of the daughter, I know he wants to have Eros on and talk about like the specificity of like everybody's kind of worldview. Obviously, Waves, you're gonna have to come on my show. So save a movie for me. What's that Scottish movie where she does the High Guardian Angel ritual? You should come on my show and talk about that.
Oh, A Dark Song. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good.
Oh yeah, let's do that if you want to. Any movie. I'm really down for any movie, honestly. I'm just that I've heard someone else that is he's not my nemesis anymore, but he was formerly my nemesis. And so my podcast nemesis. And so he did it. I heard him do it once and I was like, I can do a better job. So if you're interested in that, but any movie, please let me know. You're welcome. I love doing media episodes, but you're also welcome to do a magic episode. I'm very flexible lately. So Waves, thank you for joining us. Obviously, I'm going to let you say whatever you want to say as like your final words for this episode. Anyway, I'm really glad that you're in addition to the Grey Lodge. I think you bring a lot of like fresh, much more contemporary knowledge. Obviously, I'm like an old troon with my like medieval tantra and medieval Kabbalah, but I think it roots, in my opinion. I think I kind of root it somewhere more. Although I'm a very experiential magician myself, I think I root it somewhere textual, and I think that it is helpful for me at least. Maybe not for anyone else, but for me. So, Waves, thank you so much. Please say anything you want to say and plug your YouTube.
Thanks for me. It's a pleasure to be of the so far. Not really generally one for groups. It's been exceptionally fun and long may it continue. Plug me too. I've got more things on definitely, and yeah, I think I shall stop there in case my mic gets up. Try to fix it for next week. I'm not sure what's wrong with it. Might have a new did it the other week, so probably that. So anyway, thanks. Thanks, you brought them really good, challenging points for me to think about. So that was cool. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Waves. That was obviously his first Grey Lodge. So I mean, that's great. Like, everybody, that's how everybody came up. That's how every single co-host came up. It was young Jinskis doing Kabbalah, Gonzo, Aeonic Kabbalah, Gonzo on his own, on Spaces pretty much, with like a small following. And they were like joining me. And then we would like talk Kabbalah and we'd be like, yeah, we agree here. We don't agree here. So that's basically how the whole Grey Lodge started. It started off of Aeon of the Daughter, of those spaces that I was doing. I was in like a lull period. I wasn't getting booked on any shows. I was like, maybe this is a sign. Maybe this is a sign that I'm supposed to work on this Aeonic idea, that it was the whole reason I started podcasting. Was to like say this Aeonic idea was to continue like this work that I didn't know even existed. I had no idea who Frater Achad was. I barely knew who Crowley was. Like I knew who he was, obviously, but I was like such a different magician than that. I was into tantra, and now I realize like, yeah, maybe there is some overlap because of our interests, but the way I had gone about it was totally different. I never joined an institutional order of like magic, and I also was into chaos magic, and I also was into like Agrippa. So it wasn't like, it wasn't like I knew anything about the OTO or the Golden Dawn, but I actually love the OTO, sort of, as I said, the neo-Gnostic framework. So I think that that is a positive for New American Magic, which I'm obviously obsessed with. Obviously, Waves and Crowley are British, but it's undeniable how much that has influenced what we're looking at. So I want to give Eros the opportunity to plug her channel and her YouTube, or not her channel and her, well, anything she wants, but her channel and her Twitter, and thank her so much for coming and becoming that much needed feminine force that we needed among the pylons. Thank you, Eros. Really appreciate you, and I can't wait for us to record for Threshold Saints.
Yeah, it's great as always, and it was fun having Waves. It's nice because he's like a well-read Thelemite, and so that's fun. Like, he just off the cuff can just reference different books and ideas from them, which really says something. Like, you've really read them, you've stewed on them, and so it makes for really interesting conversation. I don't maybe I haven't spoken to a lot of Thelemites, but I don't feel like I can usually get such thorough, well thought out responses from them. So that's great. Um, yes, so my YouTube is Eros Up, and my Twitter is Eros to Ethos. Again, doing that interview with Josh tomorrow, who is also a Grey Lodge member who isn't here. So that'll be fun, just interviewing him. It's my esoteric interview series, so I just have practitioners on and just kind of interview them about their practice, how they, like, kind of just what they'll tell me about their practices. Some people are more closed off than others, but so far it's been pretty good just to hear about their beliefs and their cosmology, their perspective, how they actually incorporate magic into their daily life. It's great. And then, you know, Sunday I have a video coming out about projections, which Waves kind of mentioned projections. I don't know if he remembers at a point in the stream tonight, and I just kept my mouth zipped because I was like, just wait for Sunday. But yep, it was a great episode. Thanks for having me on, as always, Jin. Um,
As we joke, you are my sister Skywife. So thank you so much, Eros. I do really appreciate you. I'm so glad that we actually connected. In some ways, it makes me say, Vanessa, don't lightning strike me, please. But it does make me say, thank God for Nick, because it did kind of give us like, I don't know, I felt like a connection. I felt like a spark on that episode. And I was like, Eros is like someone that like I feel like is like my kind of like Midwest twin spark in a way, at least one of them. So I appreciate you, Eros, greatly. And, I'll definitely share your video and make sure you share it in the chat. And, yeah, we'll definitely all show up for Joshua's interview. I'm so glad you're interviewing him. He's a great member. He's often misunderstood because he is like dad. We call him the dad joke king. And he is the king of dad jokes, sometimes really lame ones. But he is kind of funny in his own way, and he is good at Kabbalah, and he knows a lot about New Testament, or not New Testament, Old Testament shit. And so those are all assets, because obviously we always talk about, like, the Bible is a magic book, however people want to phrase it. So, which maybe is why they should never have let the Normgroids have total access to it. Maybe that's been a bit of a disaster, but we're heading towards a kind of global mass illiteracy. So let's see what happens, is what I want to say. So I guess I'm the one doing of course, the closeout. So let me say thank you, Eros. Thank you, Waves. Thank you to Solar Exile, our brother. Thank you to Joshua the Branch, our other brother. And thank you to Vanessa and Cassandra, our other Skywives. And I want to shout out Crystal. I thought Crystal was actually going to show up, but she maybe was driving or whatever. So I'm really, yeah, it's been cool. I've been like, this was like a fresh chapter. So this was kind of our 2-year anniversary. I just kept it low key. Like I didn't announce it or anything, but yeah, this was our 2-year anniversary of the Grey Lodge. I know it actually happened a couple weeks ago, but we're going to continue as a bi-monthly space as we can, and we're going to talk about Metamagic and like the news, but not anything our word. We're going to talk about cool stuff, and we'll talk about things just like we did tonight: astrology, speculative Kabbalah, speculative tantra, speculative Tolima, speculative what else did I say? Well, speculative everything. So thank you so much. You can check out my show, Threshold Saints, thresholdsaints.substack.com. You can check me out. I did finally update my link tree. So thresholdsaints.linktree.com. Yes, I know it's insane. How could I? You can always check us out at the Grey Lodge. Obviously, if you're watching this right now, youtube.com/@TheTrueGreyLodge. Thank you so much for subscribing. Yes, it will undergo renovation, and all that means I'm not going to announce anything right at this time. When the stuff happens, it will happen. Thank you guys. Obviously, you can tell there's a bit of a new look to the channel, and so that is like that's the direction we're moving in. So we're moving in because I am the Kino King, right? No episodes correct without, or no episodes like finalized without me saying like how great and smart and great at Kino I am, which is also Kabbalah. So I'm kidding, of course, partially. But thank you to everybody. Thank you for people who made it happen, and thank you to all the people that I've been recording with like nonstop. It's been great, and hope we can continue through the summer and have like a fun, casual kind of space where we discuss the clearly the movement of the aeon, which is like in no greater view than right now, where social media is the biggest liar of all. And maybe the arrow of the daughter, as I say, is the great discerner of the truth. So, with that being said, Plus Ultra presents The Grey Lodge, live from Castle Greyskull, Ark Null. I'm your host, Jin the Ninja. I host a show called Threshold Saints. This is The Grey Lodge, a group chat of metamagicians and weirdos on the coven of chaos on the internet, but not just chaos. Obviously, we follow Dharma, and we follow love, will, and life, because we are also, well, at least I am. So following the aeon of the daughter. So thank you, everybody. A successful YouTube live. I was quite nervous, but I'm really happy. So we'll close it there. Good night, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks. Cheers.